I turned 88 this winter, and the loudest sound in my house most days is the ticking clock in the hallway. It's the same clock that used to get drowned out by breakfast dishes, morning radio, and someone asking where their keys were. Time used to move around me. Now it sits with me. For most of my life, I had a purpose that started at 6 a.m. sharp. I put on a uniform, laced the same pair of walking shoes, and stepped out into a neighborhood that expected me. Front doors opened when they saw me coming. People asked how my weekend was. Children waved like I was part of their morning routine. I wasn't just delivering letters. I was part of a pattern that made sense. These days I can go an entire afternoon without speaking a single word out loud. No one warns you that usefulness fades quietly. It doesn't announce itself. One day you're the person everyone relies on, and later you're the person who has to ask someone else to reach the top shelf. There's no ceremony for that change. It just happens while you're busy thinking you still have time. I used to know the names of every dog on my route. Now there are new families on my street, and I don't know theirs. What surprised me most was not the loneliness itself, but how invisible it makes you feel. When you are young or middle-aged, the world reacts to you constantly. People need things from you. They listen. They notice when you walk into a room. When that stops, it feels less like being alone and more like being erased. I remember standing in a pharmacy line last year. I was there long enough to read every label on the candy rack. 2 employees walked past me. A younger man stepped behind me and was helped first because he spoke up. It wasn't cruelty. It was as if I blended into the shelves. You begin to question your own presence when that happens often enough, so you start creating small interactions just to confirm you still exist. You ask a cashier how their day is going, even if you don't need to. You sit in a park longer than necessary, hoping someone will comment on the weather. These aren't social plans. They are proof of life. Another thing no one explains is how your body changes from something you trusted into something you negotiate with. I used to walk miles without thinking about it. Now I plan my movement like a careful traveler. Is the floor clear? Is the light on? Is my phone within reach? Falling is no longer an accident. It becomes a fear that sits in the back of your mind while you pour coffee or step into the shower. You move slower, not because you want to, but because you know recovery is no longer guaranteed. Pain is one part of it. The larger part is uncertainty. You realize there may not always be someone nearby to help you up. That knowledge changes how you live inside your own home. Rooms become distances. Stairs become decisions. Then there is time. When you work, time has edges. Morning, lunch, evening, weekend. After retirement, those edges blur. Monday feels like Wednesday. You look at the calendar and realize a whole week passed without a single event to mark it. Without structure, motivation slips. You ask yourself why you should get dressed early when no one is coming. Why cook a full meal when no one will sit across from you? Why go outside when the destination is simply to return? I learned the hard way that routine is not about productivity. It is about staying anchored. I now wake up at the same hour every day, even if I have nowhere to go. I make my bed, even if no one will see it. I walk to the mailbox, even if there is nothing inside. These small actions are boundaries that keep time from dissolving. Silence is another companion you don't expect to meet so closely. When you live with others, silence is a break between sounds. When you live alone long enough, it becomes the main sound. You start leaving the television on just for voices, not programs, just voices. Sometimes I catch myself speaking to photographs, not because I think anyone will answer, but because hearing my own voice reminds me I'm still part of the living world. Memories become sharper than the present. I can recall the exact smell of rain on the pavement from 20 years ago, but I sometimes forget what I walked into a room to do. The past feels crowded and detailed. The present feels thin. There is comfort in those memories, but also a quiet sadness, because they remind you how full your life once was. Pride becomes complicated too. I was raised to handle my own problems. For decades that worked. Independence was something I was proud of. Now it sometimes keeps me from asking for help when I need it. There are things I can no longer do easily, carrying heavy groceries, fixing things around the house, driving long distances. I told myself for a long time that managing alone was strength. In reality, it made my world smaller. Accepting help is not losing dignity. It is adapting to reality. That took me longer to learn than it should have. If I could speak to my younger self, I would say this: build connections before you need them. Don't assume the people in your life will always live nearby. Distance grows faster than you expect. Careers, marriages, opportunities, everyone moves. Friendships need maintenance, not just memories. I would also say keep your body moving as long as you can, not for appearance, but for function. Strength and balance are forms of freedom. When they decline, your world shrinks, and create interests that belong only to you. Work ends, children grow, roles change. You need something that remains yours when everything else shifts. Despite all this, aging is not only loss. There is a clarity that comes with it. You stop worrying about impressing people who were never thinking about you in the first place. You recognize which problems were never worth your energy. You learn that a quiet morning, a warm drink, and a bit of sunlight on the floor can be enough. Contentment becomes simpler and more honest. What I miss most is not activity, but participation. The feeling of being part of something ongoing. That is what I try to recreate in small ways. I call someone instead of waiting for them to call me. I sit near people instead of apart from them. I say yes to invitations even when I feel tired, because staying connected requires effort. If you are younger and listening, don't treat older people as if their stories are finished. We are still here, still observing, still thinking. Ask us questions, not out of politeness, but out of curiosity. It reminds us that our experiences still have value. And if you are the one growing older, don't withdraw completely. It is tempting when things become difficult, but isolation grows quickly once it starts. I'm not writing this to complain. I've lived a long life filled with purpose, relationships, and meaning. And I've walked streets that no longer look the same, and known people whose names are now only in my memory. That's a privilege. But I wish someone had told me how important it is to prepare for the quieter years, not financially, but socially and emotionally. You need people, not occasionally, regularly. You need routines that give shape to your days. You need the humility to accept help and the courage to ask for it. You need to keep learning small things so your mind has somewhere to go. Most of all, you need to stay visible to others and to yourself. Every morning, I open the curtains, water the same plant I've had for decades, and step outside for a few minutes, even if there is nowhere specific to walk. Those actions tell me I am still participating in the world, even if in a smaller way. A life does not disappear all at once. It fades if you let the connections break, if you stop moving, if you stop speaking. The opposite is also true. Small efforts keep it present. So if you are far from this stage of life, don't be afraid of it. Just build a foundation that will support you when things slow down. Keep people close. Keep your body capable. Keep your curiosity alive. And if you know someone who is already here, call them today. Not because they need help with something, but because hearing their name spoken matters more than you realize. I am still here. I still make my tea every morning. I still watch the light move across the room. My world is quieter than it once was, but it is not empty. The difference between fading and remaining is often just one conversation, one routine, one reason to get up tomorrow. Take care of those while you can.